BWI Friday, one of the best days of the week because it's the weekend. And because we get more recruiting information here on the show, something I want to do more and more of as the summer goes on, get more recruiting information here on the BWI Daily Edition. But as we've been doing for most of this offseason, and last year as well, Fridays are for Ryan Snyder. Ryan, you have any best bets? We haven't done a best bet in a while. Were you betting on the match yesterday?
No, I'm buying a house right now, dude. Gambling has been drastically reduced for the time being. Let me figure out where I'm going to live here in a couple of months, and then maybe we'll do a little more of that down the road. But yeah, no gambling right now. Trying to be a responsible father for the time being.
So that your kids are not coming from your bedroom during the BWI Daily Edition at some point, where all of you are piled into one room while you're waiting, looking for a house in Harrisburg.
Yeah, definitely not trying to live at my parents' house for a month or two. Let's get that figured out. So we'll pick it back up maybe when football season comes around. I did tell Greg I wanted to do, and we do this obviously with you too, but like there's like season win totals, have come out from all the sports books. So maybe when things die down a little bit, we'll do something, when there's no recruiting to talk about, which is not going to be the case for like 7 weeks because recruiting is about to just blast off here. So anyway, let's get into it.
Yeah, it's June, so things are about to pop off. Not that they're ever done. I mean, you had a lot of important information over the last month of May. Spring football had a bunch of people come through campus, which you chronicled over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com throughout the spring season. But June, with official visits, camps, this is where things start to really pick up. So you're going to want to make sure you subscribe here to the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel so you don't miss the BWI Daily Edition. Or if you like the podcast so you can be listening on a run or at the gym or while you're driving, you get all the information there as well. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, $1 for 12 months of access so you can get through the entire Penn State football season, the entire college football playoff, which, you never know what's going to happen there with Penn State's chances in the fall. And then, of course, draft season, bowl season, everything else for $1. I can go on and on and on and on. National Signing Day, both of the National Signing Days, all just $1 if you sign up right now. That's your future. And I can be confident of that. I'm a fortune teller here, Ryan.
You're getting good at these promo reads, Steve Frank.
I just, at a certain point, so this is what it's like to be good at football, I imagine, where you've got the basics down, you know the information, and then you can get creative. I always tried to skip the step of getting the basics down and just being creative right away. That's where you start to be terrible at things. So we mentioned camps. The Whiteout is this weekend. And I want to start here at a pretty basic level so that everyone's on the same page, because I absolutely know what we're talking about here with the Whiteout Camp. But this is for everybody else. You know what I mean? Right. What is the Whiteout Camp, which is coming up this weekend?
Yeah, well, we'll start even before that and say Penn State's going to host about 7-8 camps this year in total on campus, of course. And this is supposed to be the premier camp. This is supposed to be the one where you get as many top talented players as you can, all on campus the same day to work out with the staff. And really, it's going to be a host of 2023 guys all the way down to 2025. I even have a 2026 kid who I guess is 8th grade going into freshman year confirmed, which is that's wild just to think about, But yeah, I mean, this is the camp that Penn State's been trying to get the best talent available to attend. Now, of course, there's going to be a ton of talented guys who come over the next 6-7 camps after this, just because they're not able to make this weekend work. But the goal here is to get a handful of committed guys, a handful of top 2023 targets, and then some 2024, 2025 young guys all on campus together, all competing against each other, and to give Penn State's coaching staff a chance to work with them.
And I imagine I think it's brilliant, by the way, the idea of not only to get in a chance to evaluate these players one more time, to see them up close, but also to give the players a chance to be like, you know what? If we all played together, we'd be pretty good. You can see who you're going up against. You can see how it is to play with those guys. So, it's a pretty smart thing to do to get all your best players and just get them to play together. Whether it's a visits or these situations, it seems like it's very smart to get the best players together, wearing your colors, getting them very used to that idea.
Yeah, this started. Florida kind of started this under Urban Meyer. Friday Night Lights was always kind of the camp name. I believe it. I mean, at least Friday Night Lights under Urban was kind of like the first one that I really remember that really kind of blew up. Everybody would talk about, a ton of recruits, from all over the country would want to attend. And now every school does this. So, this list won't be anything like some of those old camps where, Florida, Urban Meyer was getting some crazy talented camps together. We were talking about, 20, 30, top 250 kind of prospects. I mean, there's nothing like that anymore. But that's, again, because it's so watered down. All types of schools across the country are trying to do the same thing this weekend. But it's still, a very good list. There's a lot of talented guys here. There's a couple committed guys, a couple younger guys who I think will get scholarships down the road,
Mm-hmm.
and then some quality 2023 prospects who have kind of, they got those West Virginia, Pitt, Maryland offers, but they haven't quite gotten the Penn State offer yet. It's a lot of that with this list. So should we just go through it? I assume
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
where we transition to next.
Yeah, you got the list over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com for the full thing, for all the things that you need to know. But give us a couple names that stand out to you, and the ones you think might be priorities in the list of priorities, knowing this weekend they all are.
Yeah, I'll start. There's committed guys too. I expect Cooper Cousins to come up, which is great. Lamont Payne should be there. Anthony Donko should be there. Joey Schlafler is kind of 50-50 at the moment as we're taping this, but he might be up this weekend. He's coming off an injury, so I think he's just trying to take it easy, but also, wants to get back into the groove. I'll mainly run through the 2023 list, and I'll leave some of the younger guys, the talented guys, behind the paywall. But there are some quality 2023 guys that I think fans should keep an eye on. And a handful of them are solid offensive line recruits, so that'll be interesting to me. Taj Boyd out of Oscar Smith in Chesapeake, Virginia is a player to keep an eye on. We have him at 6'5", 315. He has a Maryland offer, a Pitt offer, Virginia offer. So like I said, one of those players who certainly is going to play at the Power 5 level, but hasn't quite gotten to a Penn State, Michigan, Notre Dame kind of level offer sheet yet. Of course, I think fans who follow recruiting should know that Penn State technically extended a verbal scholarship offer to Jordan Hall out of Columbus, Ohio last week. Jordan, yes, Penn State technically extended an offer to him, but like this camp will determine, how hard Penn State really pursues him down the road. And right now, Penn State's the only Power 5 program to extend an offer to Jordan. He has a handful of quality MAC offers. Again, 6'8", 340. So there's a lot of size there. And, I'm sure Trotwin's, trying to get a feel for, what he brings at that size. And then Onwar O'Neal is another player that I think if you follow recruiting, he should be a familiar name. He's visited Penn State, I believe, twice. I think his last one was in January. We have him at 6'3.5", 250. So it's a little bit smaller, more of a guard there. So, obviously with Penn State having multiple interior guys committed, I'll be curious to see how he works out. But he's a good player. Pitt, Maryland, Wake Forest, West Virginia have all offered. So, 3 quality offensive line recruits there. I'll add just a couple more here. Yazid Haynes is a player out of North Penn, 6'1", 160 kind of wide receiver. He was committed to Rutgers originally. He does have does have an official visit set to Minnesota, Boston College, Maryland, Ole Miss, and West Virginia are a few schools. Obviously with Penn State losing out on Rodney Gallagher, there's kind of an emphasis on wide receiver. Whether Haynes gets an offer or not, we'll kind of see. And then Levon Johnson's another guy I think it's interesting to note. He was originally a 2022 prospect from Allentown Central Catholic. He reclassified that to 2023. When he was 2022, like a year ago, he was getting like Baylor and Indiana, Maryland, Michigan. A lot of those schools fall off then, and he didn't end up committing anywhere. So he's reclassifying to 2023, going to Cheshire Academy. And since he's announced that, Maryland and Temple have both offered. So Penn State will get an eye on him. We'll see where it leads then. But, I see a bunch out of these guys. I see guys, like I said, who are just kind of, Penn State's very interested in, but for one reason or another, they need to get another look. They need to impress, and this is going to be their opportunity to try and do that if they want to end up at a school like Penn State.
I just want to go back to something quickly. Did you say Jordan Hall out of Columbus is 6'8"?
Yes, he hasn't really been here yet. Check with me on Monday; it'll be 6'5".
But
you know what I mean?
But he's tall, right? So like he's a big offensive lineman. So I just find that interesting.
Too. 340 too. So clearly he's a big body. I'll be very curious to see what he actually measures at. I should get that information early next week.
So the only reason I bring that up is because when you look at Zach Owens, you look at Malik McNeil, Jordan Hall, like Penn State and Phil Trautwein clearly are going for elite talent. The guys that are at the top of the class with Caden Proctors and the Samson Okunlolas, Javen Williams, all those guys. But then it just seems like massive offensive right tackle.
Right.
Like a 6'8", 6'7", 6'6", 340 pounds. Joshua Miller, I think, falls into that category, even though he's a bit of both of a guy that I think we both agree is highly underrated, but has that natural massiveness about him. So just trying to build a profile in my mind of kind of how Phil Trautwein looks at things, I just find that interesting. And with that in mind, so the 2023 class, is this also to get testing numbers and things like that? Because for the most part, it seems like is there still work to be done there with this class, which is already halfway full for Penn State?
Oh, there's a ton of work. I mean, are you saying like a ton of work at like a specific? I mean, pretty much every position, but tight end and quarterback still has work to do. So,
I guess
yeah, I mean, there's a lot.
My meaning is, with a lot of these guys, maybe they've done work on them from previous seasons, but is it about getting times on guys they're unsure about, getting measurements on guys they're unsure about, or about everybody and still accumulating that data with even guys that they have that are committed or that they are high targets for them?
You can never have enough data. Period. I mean, honestly,
right.
I mean, you can never have enough of it. So whether you're committed or not, whether you're a surefire take, whether you're a borderline guy or a 2025 guy who doesn't, have any offers yet, data is crucial. And especially like some of those young guys too. Penn State would love to get data this year, data next year, and then data the year after that to see how they're progressing as players, because that really helps paint the picture as well as, what their long-term potential could be. So then that remains massive. And that's why they have 7 on-campus camps, to just try to get as many players on campus as possible, because even then, like, even if it's not scholarship guys, they've I knocked my mic over. Sorry.
Getting excited about this. I love it.
I was. Podcast blooper reel. But walk-ons, right?
Yeah.
There a lot of the walk-ons they took, camped with them previously, put some numbers up that no one, I'm not gonna say no one saw coming, but impressed the staff, obviously. And that's how you get to this position then, of being a preferred walk-on at a school like Penn State. So, I mean, dude, but when this camps are all over, there's like 5 elite prospect camps, the Whiteout Camp, two 7-on-7s, not including the 7-on-7s. I mean, I would think that it'll probably be like 1,500 or so players that'll come through here. So that's a lot of information. Now, probably half of those guys, they're going to play Division II ball at best.
Yeah.
Probably most of them actually will never play college football, for being honest. But they'll get quality information on 300-400 or so prospects, maybe a bit more.
So, are there, and the last question I think on the Whiteout Camp, and the one that is probably on the top of mind of fans, is, does this event produce commitments? Do you typically get 1 or 2 guys to say, all right, I'm in, after a camp like the Whiteout Camp?
I'd have to look it up over the years. I mean, so we obviously, last year it really didn't get any because it was like right off the bat and everyone wanted to take visits. And then the one before that was like 3 years ago, right? So like off the top of my head, I don't really remember. But I would say no for the most part, because offers usually go out here and they circle back and try and host them for an official visit. I wouldn't look at this weekend as a commitment weekend. I look, again, more so the second half of June. Maybe next weekend with June 10th, there'll be a handful of quality guys, but really the second half of June and then into July, that's when the dominoes will start falling.
So you'd say more look for new offers coming out of the Whiteout Camp if somebody impressed the staff.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, okay. I mean, especially in Sunday too. I mean, there's another elite prospect camp on Sunday. I don't have a list together for that yet. I'll kind of get that together here, a day or two out. But yeah, I would be surprised if at least a handful of offers don't go out between Saturday and Monday, something like that.
So it's not just, as you mentioned, it's not just the Whiteout Camp. It's not just the 7 that are on campus. There are also satellite camps. And full disclosure, we talked about recording this a little bit early. We're recording this on Thursday, and Penn State staff currently is out at in Michigan, correct, at one of these satellite camps. So tell us a little bit about maybe the differences between an on-campus and a satellite camp, and the importance of these compared to what you host if you're the staff.
Yeah, I mean, it's really the same thing, right? It's going out, watching players at a different campus. What we've seen now is they're called like mega camps, right? Where I don't know, 20 some coaches will be there, or at least 20 some schools will be represented by a handful of different coaches. Right now, Penn State only has one satellite camp on their schedule. Now, that can change. For example, last year they went to the same one, which is the Michigan's College Showcase, which is at Ferris State. And anyone who's been following recruiting for a while, you may recognize the group in Detroit. It's called Sound Mind, Sound Body. They're like I wouldn't call them a 7-on-7 team, but they're like a training group who's really, I mean, a ton of top players that come out of Detroit have worked with these guys over the years. Well,
Gotcha.
they used to host their own private camp for the longest time. And for years, coaches went to that camp. Well, the NCAA changed this, I don't know, a handful of years ago and basically said that coaches can't go to any camp that's not on a college campus. And now basically what this has become is the Sound Mind, Sound Body camp that we used to see merged with Ferris State University, which is in Grand Rapids. And this is that same camp, really. So really, this camp will have a ton of top players in Detroit. Amari Snowden's there, Amir Herring's there. Both of those guys have offers from Penn State. Amari, out of all the players at this camp, Amari remains kind of the staff's focus. I put something on the message board this week that he does supposedly have a midweek official visit scheduled. I'll keep the info behind the scenes, but there's Penn State's working to get him on campus. It's hard because of his baseball schedule in June, but I think there's a good chance he's going to make it up here for an OV. A couple other guys. Nick Marsh is just an uber talented 2024 wide receiver that I think just about every school in the country is going to want. Penn State's out there watching him today. He's a top 150 player in the on-3 consensus. Michigan State. I could list offers all day on that guy. He's incredible. CJ Carr, Lloyd Carr's grandson's a top quarterback prospect that'll be there. Jacob Oden, really good defensive back prospect that'll be out there. And there's a lot of younger guys too. Bryce Underwood, he's a really talented freshman out of Belleville, Jamari Budden's old school, who just took Belleville to a state championship last year. That's really impressive because Belleville plays some good teams. He'll be out there. A lot of other guys too. Martellus Carter, Cassius Shivers, Desmond Stratton, I believe is what it is. Just some young guys that I know Penn State's going to be taking a close look at. But yeah, these camps right now, this is going to be Penn State's only satellite camp, but in 2 weeks from now, Penn State gets a list from some uber talented satellite camp in Florida, and there's 4 guys that Ryan Snyder really wants to look at. He's taking a plane down there, so yeah, we'll see how it plays out.
And if you want to just rewind 2 or 3 times and get those names again from Ryan here on the show, if you're watching on YouTube or if you're listening on the podcast, because I know I said this before. I don't know how you keep all of the names straight. And you're a very brave man going through all of these names.
I know. I'm reading something, dude.
Don't break the spell. You totally have all these names in your head. You're rattling them off from memory. You're a Rolodex of information.
I won't be at you. That's definitely not the case. I can't. I have 2 kids now, dude. I can't remember anything anymore. I feel like I need that Prevagen or whatever. I see a commercial for it all the time, like helps your memory. I'm gonna probably start being a spokesman for that because I need something. But anyway, what's the next topic?
The camps and the official visits are all very important this month. So let's switch over to official visits. And you've done an awesome chronicling of the most important or the most critical official visits coming up this month, from the first to the last chronologically through the month, with Jason Moore coming up this weekend. So I believe you called him one of the most important prospects in this class to James Franklin. Take me through why, and then kind of reset the weekend for Jason Moore coming up.
Yeah, well, I mean, so let's start with the fact that he's at DeMatha, right? And this is one school that has been, I don't want to say a true pipeline like McDonough has been, although, of course, Mason Robinson just goes to Northwestern. But, this is a school that Penn State consistently gets top talent out of. And Jason Moore is one of the most talented guys to come out of that school in a long time. So that's incredibly important to keep that running. 2, if you want to have a top 10 class this year, you need to get more 5-star players. Jason Moore right now is not a 5-star player, but he's on the bubble enough where he could potentially become one of those guys, right? Yeah. So to me, that's another thing. Because when I look at the top 50 players in the country right now, and those guys who, again, top 50 isn't really a 5-star, but they're only 20 spots out. That's right. They could still jump up there. Jason's one of the few guys that I think Penn State can realistically get. So there's just a lot of reasons, though. He's a quality defensive tackle. He fits the program great. He's visited Penn State more than any other school. But at the same time, man, they have serious competition. Notre Dame is considered the favorite right now, and for the longest time, I thought, well, yeah, okay, we can call Notre Dame the favorite, but Jason Jason's not really truly there yet. In my opinion, I just thought they needed to play out more, and these official visits will have a big impact on that. But compared to 6, 7, 8 weeks ago, where I thought, let's see how things play out. Now I do genuinely believe that Notre Dame is the favorite there. So visits will be massively important. Notre Dame has one, Ohio State has a visit, and so does Michigan. And I would expect that by July, there's a real chance we'll know where he's going. So Penn State getting him first. Sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes that's a bad thing. They can set a high bar, but where his head is at 3 weeks from now after seeing 3 other schools, usually isn't always bode well.
Do you read into, because I know there can be a bunch of different factors, but do you read into where somebody stacks their visits? And we had this conversation. This is why I asked this. We had this conversation about Rodney Gallagher and where everybody was on his list, and then suddenly he had no official visits. And he committed to West Virginia. So I know that it can all turn on its head in a moment, but when you're looking for clues, is that one that you kind of put a pin in, you put it in the pros or cons category?
Yes, and everybody's different though. I don't want to say to people, you should read into who's last and who's first, because sometimes it's just dad's got to work on Saturday, mom's got a family reunion, right? Like it's just everyone's different. It's very gray. There's no. Even if I found a trend that said 20% of the guys, if you follow the last visit, that's where they go, I would maybe tell you that. But just, I talked to so many guys that, hey, they're playing baseball, and they can't go this weekend, so they got to go another weekend. There's so many things. So I would not put a ton of stock into it, but I would say that having that last visit, certainly gives you a chance to, shoot down X school and shoot down Y school and shoot down Z school. And, everybody says they don't negatively recruit, but and it depends on how you look at negative recruiting, right? I mean, you don't got to be disrespectful to a school, but you can just point out why you're better in this area and that area and so forth, right? So, getting that last OV, especially if a player is ready to commit in July, it's certainly, I wouldn't say it's a bad thing, put it that way.
Now, you and Greg talked about Jason Moore on the BWI Daily Edition recruiting show on Tuesday, and you said, you hinted at this, that there may be more guys this weekend on the official visit list. Just because I read that as, you never know, sometimes things materialize. Did anything materialize this week? And are there guys that you want to add to, that you want to tell people here on the YouTube channel?
Just Damian Robinson at the moment, which I said the other day. I have not. I mean, there's always a chance. We're filming this Thursday afternoon. There's absolutely a chance that somebody could pop up in the next 24 hours. That happens. Honestly, that will happen at some point in the next 4 weeks. I have no doubt about that. But as of right now, it's just Damian Robinson, who I think, Penn State probably scheduling Damian Robinson the weekend Jason Moore's coming, both Maryland guys.
Yep.
Damian Robinson, of course, has been in college, but he's not that much older than Jason. I think there's definitely a little bit of strategy maybe to that. They can kind of chip away all at Jason. But it's just him right now. And we'll see if something changes here in the final 24 hours.
So, again, if you want to make sure you're up to date with the information, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, that's where Ryan has all that stuff. And again, if you want to get the full effect of being a BWI premium member, the Lion's Den message board, that's where you go to get all your context. Like, for example, I wrote a story earlier this week about Will Levis and scouting him at Kentucky to see if Penn State made a mistake. And then I write all these things down, and then there's still 600 to 800 words that you just don't fit in the article. And if you want to have questions, a conversation, if you want to yell at me about those things, all that stuff's already happened on both the articles I wrote. But you can get some context of what I think, or things that maybe I don't feel confident about putting in the article, but I feel more confident telling you. BlueWhiteIllustrated.com premium message form. Ryan gives you similar things, information for just those members behind the paywall in the Lion's Den message form. So it is absolutely worth your time to check it out. And I want to transition into a topic that I think is probably on the forefront of a lot of fans' minds over the last couple of weeks. Because for the class of 2023, things looked like early on, especially with the success of the offensive line, that Penn State was trending towards another top 5 class with a couple 5-star offensive linemen. They're in great position with some very talented defenders. And then over the last couple of weeks, missed out on Rodney Gallagher, as we talked about. Mason Robinson, a guy that you and I both talked to and thought was a lock for Penn State, chooses Northwestern. Nick Harbor, top prospect in the region, top prospect nationally. He has not chosen Penn State among his final schools. Same thing with Desmond Umazulu. So the question then becomes, how should you feel about this class if you're a Penn State fan? Should you start to feel nervous about where this class could finish?
So look, Rodney Gallagher is certainly a miss, and I'll say Mason Robinson too. Rodney was definitely a little higher on the stats board, but Mason was absolutely a take for them, and they were fighting for him to the very end. So with Nick Harbor and Umazulu, no, I mean, look, Umazulu is a very talented player that they want, but I mean, he's always just been kind of quiet, like not an easy player to read, and that's for every school recruiting him. That's not just from Penn State's perspective. So. Yeah, I mean, obviously they'd like to get him, but it doesn't surprise me, right, that they're not part of his top 5. And then Nick Harbor, I've talked for the longest time about, his track and why he needs to go south and why he needs to make sure he's still sprinting, because I think that young man has a potential to be in the Olympics someday. So I would say that if you look back over every class, man, every single Penn State class has a month or two where it doesn't look as perfect as it did the month or two prior to that, right? I mean, there's always going to be a time where you miss out on a couple, top 5 guys, or you miss out on top 5 lists, excuse me, for guys that you thought would be there. But when I still look at this class, I always thought it'd be tough for this class to finish in the top 10 because of the limited amount of 5-star guys that they're in the mix with, right? I mean, Penn State finished top 10 last year, landed 3 5-star players. Right now, Birchmeyer's kind of on the fringes of that in our On3 consensus rankings. He is, he's actually just outside of it now after gaining 5-star previously. He's going to be on the bubble for a little while there. Right. But I do think there's a real chance that Birchmeyer finishes as a consensus 5-star guy. And while Javen Williams is a 5-star for On3, our rankings go off of the consensus, right? And he's not a 5-star in that. So, I mean, Penn State would have to land at least one more 5-star player. And right now, I just don't see where that's coming. And because of that, I think it's going to be very difficult to finish top 10. Now, with that said, I still think 12 to 15 is realistic. And that's kind of what we've seen from Penn State for so many years, right? 12, 15, right outside that elite area, but still putting together, what I would consider B+, A- kind of classes. And I still think this class is on pace for that. You could point to a position or two and think, oh, they're losing out here. But this is Penn State. They always get it figured out. They'll poach somebody from somewhere else. They always do, right? So, you can look at it right now and have concerns about a position or two. And then I'll say, talk to me in October when, player X from Maryland, I shouldn't use schools as an example, that's rude, but player X from whatever school, right, who's kind of blowing up right now, he's committed to, a lower Power 5 school. He comes up, visits Penn State, gets an offer, boom, he commits in 2 weeks. Yeah. So just from doing this long enough, I have no doubts that they'll always figure it out. They always do. It's still Penn State. The one thing they got to get figured out, though, is NIL, because that's, in my opinion, why they lost Rodney Gallagher. Doesn't really have a whole lot to do with Mason Robinson. Mason Robinson, just, Northwestern academics played a bigger part in that than I expected. Yeah. But they will lose more Rodney Gallaghers because of NIL, and it will be this summer too. So that situation has to get sorted out, and the only way that gets sorted out is all of you who are watching this donate to the different collectives out there and let it go where it goes.
And if you're watching this show and we're 28 minutes into the show, you're probably of the demographic that wants this to be successful for Penn State. So, not that we're here making a stump speech for Penn State, but it is in your best interest, who you're our friends, our fans, that is critical. That is critical. And if you want to get a little bit more of an update, on the NIL situation, Nate Bauer and I talked on that briefly, for part of the mailbag show on Thursday. So check that out as well if you're just picking up this one because you're a recruiting guy and you want to know the recruiting information from Ryan. We'll give you some context with NIL and Nate, who's got his finger on the pulse of that particular area. So I do want to dig into one particular position because it's interesting. And you gave me your answer here just a minute ago about Penn State is Penn State, so they'll be able to find a guy. But that defensive end position I thought was very interesting because it was deep, and there's a lot of talent, at least from a physical standpoint, guys that have wow sort of stuff about them in the region. Some of those guys have chosen to go elsewhere. Can Penn State still get a guy that has that sort of wow physical talent, even if he isn't in the top of that list, and that position in particular, and then I want to talk about defensive tackle, so the defensive line as a whole. Is there any concern there for you that they might not get one of those guys that in such a deep, rich year, they might not get what they want or what they were looking at to begin with?
Yeah, I would say a lot of attention comes to Tamarian Parker now. TJ Parker is kind of his nickname. We have him as Tamarian Parker in our database. Out of Alabama, he's a top 100 prospect. Uh, yeah, he's taking an official visit up here in a couple weeks. I mean, really, I mean, he's kind of one of the last truly elite guys that are definitely coming up to Penn State. Definitely showing a lot of interest in Penn State. We know he has an official visit set to Michigan State and Penn State, and we'll see kind of where the cards fall after that. He hasn't opened up too much about whether he wants to commit this summer or after. He's just kind of said mixed things, so we'll see where it plays. But it does kind of sound like Georgia, who was really invested in him for a while now, has kind of shifted their focus elsewhere. Why that is, I'm not exactly sure. And, a few other schools too, but also those powerhouses, man, they can just get anybody they want. So that's usually a big reason why they just kind of fill up at positions.
They could be picky for scheme too. Like it might not even be like that. He just doesn't perfectly fit what they're looking for. They have the luxury of doing that.
Right, exactly. So, Marian's, I think, certainly a player that has gone from like he's a Southern guy, let's see how things play out, to it's like, that Penn State needs to make a damn good impression on this visit, because if not, that let's see where things play out. Because I mean, there's guys like Dylan Gooden, for example, is a guy who actually came to Penn State's Whiteout Camp. He's rated a little higher, but or not rated as high as Parker, but a good, solid rating. But I don't think Penn State's all that interested in him anymore. There's I think one guy maybe is Calvin Smith out of Florida. I still kind of continue to hear things about, but I just don't know if his interest is that high. I would say Jalen Thompson out of Caz Tech. He came for the blue-white game as a player that I think has real interest in Penn State, but I still give Michigan State an edge. And then also Ohio State just offered yesterday after he camped with them, right? So that's kind of that could be an issue. But Jalen Thompson, certainly, Tamarian Parker, certainly, those guys are pretty important. But like I said earlier, man, they'll figure it out. They always do.
So there's still some talent there on the board, but with it's interesting too. And I know that this is kind of a comes a little bit full circle, and it's still up in the air. But Neo Avery now, in my mind, plays back into this class.
I didn't even mention Neo. That was stupid of me. I'm sorry, I cut you off there. But
no.
He's definitely.
But yeah, I understand, because I also, I was going through your article, and his name came up as an important visit. And before, with all these other names at defensive end, I thought, okay, so if they lose this guy, it's okay because there are more options. Now the options have dwindled a little bit, and Neo is, you got to consider him the whole time. But I want to spin this forward towards the defensive tackle position and get back to Jason Moore, because if you look at the defensive line as a whole, there are still, in my opinion, with some of the Florida players, with Justin Benton, with Jason Moore, there's a lot of talent at that defensive tackle position that's interested in Penn State. So if we're looking at the defensive line as a whole, could you see them leaning on those defensive tackles to try and still get some of those talent and some of those difference makers up front, where maybe they would take more than they would in a normal year?
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like there's definitely more talent at defensive tackle this year. The issue is really kind of more so they need defensive tackles, but they have quite a few young guys too, with Izzard and Mulba and Vandenberg. I would think that some people could argue that they need more defensive ends and defensive tackles this year, put it that way. But when I look at the talent, I definitely feel like defensive tackles kind of, if you're taking 5, right, like maybe 3 and 2, lean towards tackle. But I mean, Will Norman's a guy who I think Penn State has more of a chance with than I expected previously. Of course, he's at IMG, Camden. Like, I continue to hear, like, I always I've written him off a couple of times because I didn't, he's at IMG, he's got other schools. But then every time I do that, so it's just like, keep telling me that's kind of silly. Like, they feel pretty good about that situation. And he's very important to Penn State. He's more important to Penn State than I expected. David Hobbs, too, out of Concord, North Carolina, another player that I think Penn State's gaining momentum with. I'd still lean towards North Carolina as the team to beat there, but he did come up for a quality visit. And of course, there's the Bentons of the world. There's the LeBlancs, the John Walkers, Jason Moore, of course. So, like, I do see a deeper talent pool there. But again, I mean, talk to me in a month from now after these official visits, and things could look a whole lot different.
So still, even after a couple of misses, a lot of optimism, because here's the good thing. There's a lot of people in America, and that means there's a lot of players in the class of 2023.
But there's also not a lot of 6'5", 280-pound guys who can, do a 4.6 shuttle and, a 4.8 40. Because that's the one thing, I apologize, I cut you off there, T. Frank, but that's one thing when I always ask about the most important positions, right? You and I have talked about this before. Why is offensive tackle, defensive tackle, in coach's eyes so important? It's because there's only so many people with that size, and there's even a small amount of people that can size and move. So just something to cut you off there. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. It's just it's the balance between overreacting to a couple of things, but also keeping the pressure on to make sure that but you still have to land some of these guys. And Penn State is in a good position. We'll see how it all plays out. I think that'll do it today for the Daily Edition. Do you have anything else to end the week on? Anything you're thinking about? Anything we didn't mention?
No, I would also just say Matthias Barnwell is going to be a defensive tackle too, right? So it's not like they don't have anybody there already. They do have pretty much one defensive tackle, one defensive end committed. They need pretty much three more, and they'll feel safe. But no, man, just a fun weekend coming up. I'll be able to go to Whiteout Camp this year. We haven't gone to a Whiteout Camp in, I don't know, was it 2-3 years, something like that? So that'll be fun to get back out there and film guys, get photos, and watch everything up close. So really fun couple weeks coming up, a busy couple weeks, but if you subscribe to sites like this is really why I would subscribe, right? If I was a subscriber, the summer is one of the most fun times, and of course the season as well. But June and July should be a lot of fun. Next 7 weeks, nonstop. There's going to be a lot of news coming.
And of course, once again, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, $1. All of that. I was thinking, not to filibuster here at the end, I was thinking about this, and I've said this before on the show. This level of entertainment, education, content, the thing that's your hobby, if this is your hobby, you do not get a better deal than $1 for that much content and entertainment. And I think of it as entertainment because I'm on here making dumb jokes on the YouTube channel, but it's information, it's all those things, and it's $1 for a year. So subscribe right now. BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. This is the BWI Daily Edition. I'm your host, Thomas Frank Carr. We will be back on Monday.